Well, we're here to actually give some solid insight into LGBTQ travel. I think that everyone listening to this can relate to going on holiday. When you're there, Googling gay bar, gay street.
Yeah.
If there were absolute no-go places for LGBT plus travelers, where are they?
I definitely wouldn't be opening an app in a lot of those destinations. You might be on Grindr and bits and pieces, and you're potentially speaking to someone from the police.
Where's your favourite place you've ever been?
If I were given anywhere on the world that I would, that I could go back to immediately, what would it be? It would be...
Chris Zeiher, thank you for joining me.
Oh, no, thank you for having me.
Yeah, this will be a really, really great chat because I don't travel enough, so I'm interested to get all of your insights.
So I'm here to motivate as well as educate,
Yes,
maybe?
exactly. Both of those things.
Excellent.
In your own words, what is your role at Lonely Planet?
So I head up the global sales and marketing team on the print side of the business.
Okay.
So basically those guidebooks that you see in a Waterstones or W.H. Smith, that is my team responsible for that. But I've also been really lucky enough, because I've been with Lonely Planet for nearly 20 years, to be able to write for the brand as well. So I've written for printed books, I've written for digital articles. So it's really interesting to be in a job that not only are you out there, pimping your own product, but you're actually writing and living the actual dream, doing what your other writers are doing on the road, which is pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, a company like Lonely Planet, I'm sure people tell you it's like the dream job.
I'm not staying somewhere for 20 years if it's not the dream job. But I do have a lot of people that have kind of basically gone, how do I get your job? And I'm like, oh my, should I be looking over my shoulder here for, knives or bits and pieces? But yeah, it's pretty exceptional.
Yeah, it's such a cool company to work for. It's world famous. Everyone dreams of being a sort of travel blogger. So you're kind of one arm away from that almost.
And it's super interesting because I have been in the business long enough to see the rise of social media and the rise of digital content and how that has changed the way that people behave with travel content.
Yeah.
And how at the moment the market is just super saturated.
Right.
And everybody's confused as to where they go. Should I be listening to this social influencer? Should I be reading this blog? And they're not necessarily understanding where that information is actually originating from, which is just an interesting place to be right now.
Yeah. Well, we're here to actually give some solid insight into LGBTQ travel. Because you are a gay man yourself.
Yeah, I am, and I'm been very fortunate for many years to host a fortnightly show on Joy, which is the only LGBTQIA plus radio station in Australia. So which is very cool. And basically big advocate for LGBTQIA plus travel.
You've come from Australia today.
I have. It's been a long journey.
Yes, just for this podcast.
Just for this podcast. I spend a lot of time on planes I'm based in Melbourne, in Australia. So I have teams in Dublin, New York, London, all over the place. So I'm constantly on the move, which is right for a travel publisher, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't expect anything less. Like that's kind of what I want from you, is to be always traveling and knowing the world.
It would be super boring if I was home the entire time.
Yeah. So I want to kick off with kind of outlining why it is important to offer specific travel advice tailored towards LGBT plus people.
Do you know that I hate that we have had to do a standalone book product on LGBTQ plus travel?
Okay.
And I hate it because it's indicative of what is going on just currently. And we really wanted to address that by doing a standalone product. Some of the surveys that we were looking at when we were proposing this product they're just awful. Like, I think Booking.com, 60% of respondents said they've been discriminated when they've been traveling overseas, which is just a horrifically high number. There was another survey that was done by Gay Times, which said that people found it really, really difficult to find a lot of information fast on safety, particularly in destinations when they're planning and when they're choosing. And we're like, we need to do something about that, and we need to actually compile some credible information, a really great companion or resource for people to be able to make those decisions. And the bit that's extraordinary is by 2030, queer travel is going to be worth something like $550 billion. So there's a huge amount of money that we as the community are pumping into other communities. And I want to advocate for people to go to places that we feel we're included, we're welcomed. So we should be spending our traveller dollars there and not in other destinations that are slightly more problematic.
Yeah, it's quite a difficult thing to write about, isn't it? I suppose, because it's never set in stone. Laws are changing,
All the
cultural
time.
shifts are changing. Where might be good today might not be good tomorrow, and vice versa. So I suppose for Lonely Planet to have written a book like this, it's almost in 10 years there could be an updated edition or something. It's quite a difficult thing to talk about, isn't it? Because it does shift around.
And that's why we're fortunate in a lot of our book product. It is editionable. So if we can find the right format, we can then kind of go back and edition on edition. What I love about, so our author is Alicia Walensky. She's an author she's American. She now lives and works in Amsterdam. So she's got a great kind of cultural and international perspective. She's not kind of isolated in one area. And her pitch was, I just want to go and interview locals in local communities to give us recommendations about what we should do as queer travellers when we're in those local communities. And we've surfaced some really interesting destinations. So we're not necessarily going to, San Francisco, Sydney, Toronto, the kind of ones that spring to mind as being really, really obvious. There's like Anchorage in Alaska. There's Valletta in Malta. There's Richmond in Virginia in Australia. And in the United States, Melbourne is included over Sydney. So there's a really interesting mix to get people thinking beyond the obvious as well, which I really like.
Yeah, I like that as well. I mean, I told you I got the book yesterday, so I went through it today, and I was looking through it, and there were so many destinations I'd never have thought of, and I thought this is an awesome guide for me to sit either by myself or with my partner or whatever, and go, oh, we never thought of that, and let's give that a go. And I think that's quite unique.
It is, and I think it also challenges a little bit of maybe it's about preconceptions or misconceptions about destinations as well. To sort of say, actually, I can be I should be traveling here. This is really good. And as I said before, we want to advocate places where travel money is really, really important. Like when we're spending big. So we want to spend in those communities where we know they're going to invest back into community as well. So that's important. I also find that, there's a lot of places out there that have got safety indexes as well. So in terms of, and I recently was really surprised that Portugal came in as the safest country in the world for LGBT travelers to be going to, which is the first time it's topped the list as well.
Do you think it's difficult for LGBT plus people to find travel advice currently?
So that's the information that we've kind of found out. So particularly that survey from the Gay Times was the one that really threw us. And it was like 65% of respondents said they can't find information quickly. Yeah. And I think that goes to a point we were talking about earlier, which is around there's just this huge volume of information out there. So how do you sift it, and how do you find out what is right and what is wrong? And therefore, we wanted to kind of put a product together that solved that problem.
Yeah, because also I think there's an element of trust there, isn't there, where you can go on Reddit or something and read reviews by people, but everyone's got such a different opinion on how they like to travel, and what might feel fun and safe, whatever, for someone might not for the other one. So, and also I guess there's a huge prominent voice of maybe gay men traveling, and that's all over the internet, but actually maybe that's quite different for other people in the queer community.
It is, and I think we've also included things like traveling as a gay family. So if you've got kids, what does that actually look like? Solo travel as well. So the consideration of traveling as a couple, the whole complication around transgender travel at the moment, particularly as there's this really weird stuff going on politically as well, particularly out of the United States. So we've got some really difficult things to kind of tackle as a community, and we wanted to kind of put that, as I said, into this compendium, into this resource that does become kind of like a queer Bible for travel.
Yeah, I think that everyone listening to this can relate to going on holiday, and when you're there, Googling gay bar, gay street.
Yeah.
All you haven't thought about this before you go. You just presume, okay, there must be a gay area or the safe zone in Mexico City or whatever. And knowing this before you go on a trip can make or break a holiday. Do you
Absolutely.
agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. And because we do want to know where our neighborhoods are, right? We do want to know where where we can kind of
Yeah, for
feel
sure.
connected to community and feel safe and do all the, and, and really just kind of have a good time.
Yeah.
So, and that's not always necessarily obvious in every destination. And that's why we went to locals. It's like we went to the people that live there and basically said, surface the areas that we think are right. And then I think there becomes that counterbalance for when you read on the internet, oh, you should be going to this place. And it's like, well, that place actually died 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Permanently closed.
Exactly. It's actually like the local is going, no, you're actually going 2 suburbs over, and this is where you should be going.
And what's good about asking locals as well is that you're not going to go immediately to the obvious. So say if you're in London, someone might, no shade to GAY or something, think, oh, I'm going to go to the headline gay bar of London, when actually I live in Hackney and there's so many gay bars here and restaurants or gay friendly spaces that people could go to, and that's what's cool to get a local's opinion.
And that's right. And I think, and I'm a Melbourne boy. So the bit that I love about Melbourne as well is I think back in the day, you would be going to Prahran or St Kilda and etc. And, and you can still find that all over the internet. And it's like, no. Where you go now is Collingwood and Fitzroy, and that's where the community is, and that's where the Pride Street Party happens, and all those bits and pieces. Again, it's those things where it's just countering some of that kind of loosey goosey information that's out there.
Is Revolver in the book?
I actually don't know. I need to go and have a quick look.
Have you been to Revolver?
No.
But do you know of it?
Yes.
I don't know if that's specifically a gay venue, but I went and I was like, this is like being a Berlin in Melbourne.
I think the that might have been replaced by Poof Doof, but I need to go and check.
Yeah, I think I went to that. That was fun. So you said earlier, but the travel, the LGBT plus travel market is massive, growing, getting bigger. I mean, I've got the figure here, and you said it, $568 billion by 2030.
It's just an insane amount of money. And again, it comes to the fact that we are a group of travelers that, we do want to go away. We want to have a holiday. We want to connect with communities. We want to experience stuff. And we might not necessarily be as tied to family as a lot of other, travel units are. We travel more frequently.
Yeah.
And we can travel on short stints, longer stints. We're much more upwardly mobile. We can be digital nomads. We've got all of this kind of advantage to us, which makes us really lucrative from a destination point of view as well.
The pink pound is real.
Yeah, pink dollar is strong.
It's good to be gay. I remember with one of my exes, we were talking about going on holiday, and I think that we mentioned Dubai or something. And then I think that we were like, oh, let's go to Dubai. That could be fun. And then one of us was like, babe, I don't think we can go to Dubai. I don't think we could walk into the hotel and kiss in the lobby and then walk into the same room. And I was like, really? Fuck, I didn't know that. And I think that thought will be shared amongst a lot of people, particularly in Western countries, because I think we live in this sort of, we're some of the most liberal and accepting countries in the world. So we almost put that on other places. We presume that that's going to be the case if we travel to there.
And we fall into that trap all the time where we think that the law is the same as to where we have come from, rather than the fact that we're a guest of that country and we have to abide by their laws. And their laws might seem a little bit cuckoo to like us, because it's like that's not what we're used to. My great example here is when we're choosing to travel in Africa. We chose to travel in Botswana and South Africa because we felt that those were the two communities or the two countries that were going to be really inclusive to us as a couple, and we wouldn't have to worry about things whilst we were there. We then went to Zimbabwe, as we wanted to see Victoria Falls. We were close to the border, and immediately our tour guide at the time, she's turned around and she basically said, you are brothers as we are over the border. So you will always be referred to as brothers, refer to yourself as brothers. So, and it was like, it's those stark moments that you kind of go, crap, really? I'm having to do this. And then you go back across the border and you feel really relaxed and really comfortable. So it's interesting when you get into those kind of destinations, how tricky things can be and how uncomfortable that makes you, because it immediately makes you feel different, but different in not a good way. Whereas I think in so many places where we live around the world, our difference is celebrated. And that makes me, it's a shame, but that's something that, straight travelers don't necessarily have to consider.
Totally. I mean, I spoke to a guest on this sofa quite a while ago now, and his family are from St. Lucia, and he says that when he goes on holiday there with his boyfriend, he has to completely be like, we are mates, we can't kiss on the street.
Yeah.
And it really took me by surprise, because I didn't know that about St. Lucia. And also, he loved St. Lucia. He loves St. Lucia as part of his heritage, his family.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to have to put that act on and go back in the closet almost when you're in a different country seems awful.
Compromising of self is something that we always have to do, I think, as part of the queer community when we're like even in business and other bits and pieces. And I think that I'm very fortunate to be in a job and in an industry where I can be myself and I don't feel like I have to hide, in the office. Whereas like I do feel like really it does become quite problematic for me when I go into specific destinations and feel like I've got to tuck parts of myself away, which are just inherently me, which is just so super disappointing. And again, hence goes back to why we wanted to create a product to be that resource to be able to go, here, this is, here is ways that you can make decisions about destinations because that information is in there.
Yeah. Well, a bit of info that I read in the letter that came with the book to me, it said that Booking.com revealed 59% of LGBT plus travelers have experienced discrimination when on holiday, which to me, I probably would say I've been fortunate to not have any, maybe just a bit of uncomfortable, can we go here, can we not? But to hear 59% of people have experienced discrimination.
And the bit that scares me about that is one of the world's biggest booking sites.
Yeah.
So 6 out of 10 of our community has experienced discrimination when they're traveling. That's frightening and it's unacceptable. But it also is about, what that discrimination could be is hard to understand. Is it when you're like booking into a hotel room and you're discriminated at the front desk, or, is it when you're, out having a meal, or is it that you're just, strolling down the street and you get abuse? So I feel that that's why, again, interviewing locals about if you're a queer traveler, what should we be doing in your community, and how do we find places that make us feel comfortable and safe is a really great way of approaching recommending destinations.
Because that was my next question.
Oh, I preempted.
You preempted. What does discrimination look like, in your opinion, to people?
So I think those are the examples. It could be immediately like something that happens at a front desk. It could be abuse on the street. I mean, I've been called on the street as like I've been walking along. I was like, what? I think I was in New Zealand and I was like walking down the street and, car went by, I got screamed out. It's like, great, thanks, hi, yeah. Well, you're welcome. Yeah. But it's those kind of things. I definitely think sometimes it can be in group tour situations as well. So say you want to go on a small group tour for a day to go out to somewhere in particular, and you're with a whole heap of other families and bits and pieces. I think things can happen all over the place, but that 6 out of 10 number is unacceptable. It's just unacceptable.
It is as well, because it almost suggests that people are going to places that they maybe wrongly assumed it would be okay to travel to. So more information is needed to make sure that people are going to places which are safe.
I think the other bit that people should recognize too is it comes back to that earlier conversation that we were having about don't assume that what you know at home is what will apply overseas.
Totally.
There are destinations like, for instance, Morocco, where we've heard over many, many years about a honey trap that happens on the apps. So you might be on Grindr and bits and pieces, and you're potentially speaking to someone from the police. It then happens that you get caught up in something. They can confiscate your phone and they can look through all of the material in your phone. So all of your pics are on display for the so you just need to be really, really conscious of how you're behaving in certain destinations. So that kind of safety index is really, really important.
Not to scaremonger anyone, but I am curious, what are some more of these stories of things? I don't know if you know this, but just...
So I think some of the other ones to be, there are destinations, obviously, in the Middle East that can be really problematic for those things. I definitely wouldn't be opening an app in a lot of those destinations. But even places like Malaysia, there is some pretty significant penalties for particularly for gay men in those destinations. But lesbians, it can be quite different. So, but gay men are often persecuted slightly more vigorously than gay women, which I find really interesting in of itself as well.
Yeah.
So there's these different scales, destination to destination.
Well, again, I had a guest here who was from Singapore, and it was only legalized. Homosexuality was only legalized in, I can't remember the date, but recently, and it was only gay men. It wasn't women. They didn't care about the lesbians. It was almost that was legal, but this wasn't.
It's so odd, isn't it? So, and that's why again we want to advocate for places like Thailand, which have just legalized same-sex marriage, and they're in that throes of celebration about that at the moment. So definitely we want people to be going there. Taiwan's another one which has absolutely huge thriving gay community. Like we want to be advocating there. Iceland, like it feels like every friggin' second person in Iceland's got some form of queer tendency.
Yeah.
So, we want to be advocating these incredible places to go to.
Yeah. When I talk about personal experience, when I go traveling, I love meeting other gay locals. I think it makes the city feel so much more familiar, and immediately you're just more connected, and it's nice to make new mates on holiday, isn't it? I don't know if you're into that as well, if you go.
Yeah, I think that any time that you can connect with a local is really, really good. And I've got some great friends that have throughout the course of my nearly 20 years with Lonely Planet and traveling that have come from just connecting with locals and community and kind of helping us get around. It's like, and some of it's just problem solving, isn't it? It's like everything is closed tonight. Where should we be going? And I think that's what's been great about certain apps. Like if you're not in the thirst trap kind of situation and you're actually able to kind of do the right sifting and find people to sort of say like, what is actually open tonight? What should I be doing? Getting that immediacy of information, and then, kind of away it goes.
Particularly for solo travelers. If I was to go to, I don't know, Sydney by myself, there is such a thriving gay community, but how do I tap into that community without going on Grindr, meeting someone there? But what would you offer any advice for that? How do people meet locals when they're out?
Look, I think it is one of those. There are lots of local community resources as well, and that's where we've actually within the book we've tried to link as many community resources per destination as we can as well, so to help people actually make those connections. I think there are some apps are better than others in terms of like putting information out, and I think it is that thing in putting it in your profile. It's like looking for tips. I'm new to town, looking for tips and recommendations on what to do, and seeing what kind of sifts back.
Right, okay. Because I suppose there are options like Mr. B&B.
Yep.
Why are you pulling that face?
I've heard a few horror stories about Mr.
I was looking at it yesterday for New York. Tell me.
Yeah, I had I think there's that expectation of you're not going to be having sex with the host. Like, do you know what I mean? It's like I think it's about expectation going into places like that. But I mean, I've only used it once, so
and never again. Was it?
It was just awkward. So it was awkward in terms of I think there was an expectation of like, oh, my guest is. Again, I just had a bad experience, so I shouldn't put the whole thing down. Because when I was don't cancel me, Mr. BB.
When I was on the website, it's quite prominent. It says nudity allowed or something, and then I was thinking, is that almost suggesting that we want you to walk around naked because the host is going to be walking around naked?
Yeah, it's about motivation, isn't it? So,
yeah.
I'm a big one in I don't hugely use hotel chains as well. I like to use apartments where I possibly can, even if they're little service departments. I like to kind of stay as anonymous as I can. I just find that much more interesting when you're traveling around.
Yeah, it's funny though, isn't it? Because I think that I personally want to be around other gays when I'm traveling.
Sure.
So if I was going to Madrid, I might stay at the Axel Hotel because I know it's a gay hotel, which is nice. But then you can maybe fall into the trap of what sort of hotel, because adults only is a real thing, isn't it? And if you've got kids, then that could be maybe a tricky one.
So, and really that comes down to what's the motivation of your trip. And we're all different travelers and we all have different kind of motivations. Like when my partner and I are traveling, we travel very differently to when I'm traveling by myself. So, and we're choosing very different destinations when we're traveling together that I would choose traveling solo, because I feel quite comfortable in terms and confident in traveling in maybe slightly more precarious destinations, whereas as a couple, we're choosing potentially safer ones.
You said it before, You're really good at being ahead of me on these. Um,
I'm the preemptor today.
yeah. But if there were key factors of things that LGBT plus travelers need to consider before they go away, if you were to say there are the top ones, what would they be?
You need to inform yourself about law.
Yeah.
So I think that is definitely the top one. So because I think that then becomes like a decision tree of things for you. It's like, am I comfortable doing that? Am I comfortable behaving this way, etc., etc. So I think that's the key one. I think there is like the area that you're going to stay in would be the next like one in terms of like we've just said it. Then you love to stay in neighborhoods. I'm not necessarily. I'm actually comfortable staying out of them.
Yeah.
So like, what's your motivation in terms of where you want to stay and the type of experience that you're going to have, and what's your configuration? Like, are you traveling with mates? Are you traveling by yourself? Are you traveling as a family group? What is that kind of configuration? And I think that's all going to help you almost like sift out what is the destination that I should be choosing, as well as the type of holiday that I want to have. You know, going on a beach holiday somewhere is completely fine, and if you want to lounge by a pool or on the beach for 5 days, no problems. But that might not necessarily be. That may decide where you actually end up going, rather than I want to go do a whole heap of outdoor experiences and bits and pieces. Different kind of motivation.
Yeah, and I suppose in terms of law, there's a difference, isn't there, between law and then culture.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's a good point.
And I think that culture is also something that needs to be considered because, yes, the law in Singapore, it might be legal to be homosexual or be married or whatever. But actually, because that law only shifted recently, the culture is still very behind. So even though it is legal, you're not going to feel comfortable there.
It's a really good point too, and it's about particularly if you're traveling as a couple, it's like how you interact. If you're a very tactile couple, going to a certain destination, which has only had recently, changed laws, is the change in your behavior towards each other going to make you uncomfortable as well? So I think that's a really good kind of thing to kind of consider as well.
If there were absolute no-go places for LGBT plus travelers, where are they?
I would. The big one that comes to mind is Saudi Arabia. Anywhere with the death penalty, obviously, is something that I just think they're no go. They're no go for me. So I just feel that they're places that you really, you shouldn't be putting yourself in at that sort of risk. Again, I just find that why would you be wanting to go up to a place where those kind of laws are against the community? I just find that I wouldn't be wanting to give my money to those destinations, which is what I come back to. So that just doesn't interest me.
Is there anywhere as well as Saudi Arabia that people might not know are as strict as that?
There are several West African countries that are incredibly strict. So that they're the ones that you would have to absolutely look out for. Again, that International Gay and Lesbian Travel Alliance does a radar every year of the safest and the most dangerous countries to travel to, and often that danger set of countries doesn't shift too much, but it will also indicate what those laws are. But look, why is that, again, terrible stuff? But our community should never be threatened with things like the death penalty. I find that just abhorrent.
And from your own experience as a very well-traveled man, where have you gone and you were expecting it to be very welcoming and you thought, oh, actually, this isn't what I thought?
I'll answer that slightly differently. I felt really uncomfortable in Malaysia, which I wasn't expecting. But I found it. Yeah, I personally just felt uncomfortable there whilst I was going, and it would make a decision for me to say I'm probably not going to go again.
Okay.
Which I found really interesting, and I've had conversations with other gay male couples that go to Malaysia all the time, and they've found it incredibly welcoming, etc. But I just didn't have a great experience, and I think that shapes everything that we do when you don't have a great experience.
Yeah.
Flip of that, on my first trip to Iceland, I was like, this place is crazy. I want to come back. Like I want to be here when Pride season is on. I want to be here when I want to be here more frequently. So I think it does come down to experience.
Iceland was not on my list.
not on your list.
Mentally, I'd never thought to go to Iceland.
It's bonkers.
Really?
It's It is one of the. So this is the best story so I was out very late. They sort of said to me, the locals won't come out till about 1 a.m. If you're around in a club, you'll see tourists. You won't see the local. Anyway.
Okay.
So this was, they just, at this stage, the government had just introduced an app where if you tap your phones together, it will work out how related you are. So if you're you might end up taking your second cousin home.
That is wild.
So, and I'm like, I love this place. It's nuts.
Yeah.
It is a destination that there's a major highway where there's a boulder in the middle of the highway, which you have to kind of drive around because the construction people said they didn't want to move the boulder because they would disturb the hidden people that live in the boulder. I'm like, this is mental. They have hidden people and fairy tours that you could do to find where all the kind of like the mystical people live within the city. It's just nuts. I love it. But also at the same time, I was descended into a volcano. So a dormant volcano, you kind of walk out on the tundra and go up and get into this like window washer crate, and they pop you down into the almost like journey to the center of the earth. Later that day, I was snorkeling in glacial meltwater, which is the clearest water you can see down in anywhere in the world, which is between two tectonic plates. Like, it's nuts. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm like, I'm going back there 100%. Stupidly expensive, but yeah, great.
Do you like solo travel?
I do, yeah. I mean, I've been doing it for 20 years. So,
Yeah.
And I'm often, when I'm on a work trip, I try and track on a little bit of solo travel as well. So I'm quite comfortable with myself.
Yeah.
And quite comfortable. I feel fine. Like if going in a restaurant and eating by myself, that's all of those kind of things that I think potentially put people off. I don't mind. I'm pretty happy with my own company.
Right. But is there a limit for you personally where you think, okay, I could only do 4 days alone before I need to meet a friend or a group of people or something?
Yeah, and I'll often start chatting to people. Talking about your resource question earlier as well, one great place to start talking to people is waiters and waitresses in cafes. Like, where just basically once you start striking up conversation, if you're personable, it's kind of like, if you can get that kind of rapport going, starting to kind of like find out, what's going on, where should I be going, what should I be doing, all those kind of things. They're a great resource when you're particularly traveling by yourself as well.
Yeah, because those people will have stories and know the locals.
Yeah, and they'll know, like, they'll absolutely know what's going on. They'll be like, oh yeah, there's a street party going on down there, in 2 nights. There's a coffee festival happening over here. They're the ones that are kind of in the know. They're a great resource. So
we can talk about individuals going on holiday, but if we were to talk about families going on holiday, so same-sex parents with kids, does this change things when considering a holiday destination?
Yeah, I think it does. And I think it means that because you're not only looking after your the safety and comfort of your partner, but you're also looking at of your little ones as well. So I think there is a much greater thought process that has to go and decision process that has to go through it. And that's where rating, like the top 10 most gay friendly destinations to travel to in the world is a really good resource, a really good place to start. And it is interesting that most of them are in Europe. So and proximity for London-based travelers is actually pretty good. But when you're looking at it, it is a lot of those progressive destinations.
One thing which is quite hard to know before you go anywhere, and there isn't really a solution for this, is the other guests in places, isn't it? Because if you're a gay family and then you go to a resort and you're the only gay family, you can then feel maybe a bit uncomfortable because you've got other families from all over the world staying at this resort who could make you feel a bit on edge or weirded out by it, and that's actually quite a tricky thing, isn't it?
So that doesn't just apply to families. That applies to couples as well. You never know who you're going to be associated with.
Yeah.
So it's just one of the joys of travel.
Yeah, I'm just gonna laugh about it.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a solution on that one.
Well, I suppose you could argue the solution is doing specific LGBT plus hotels,
and then that becomes one of those things which is just like how exclusive do we become? So I would err on the side of inclusivity is actually probably a much better thing to do,
Yeah.
rather than going for those kind of like full on exclusive, LGBT resorts. I mean, I do find the one thing a phenomenon that I'm fascinated by at the moment is gay cruises. Like they look like a little bit like I've never done one, so I shouldn't judge, but I do look on my socials and I'm kind of like, they're all in the pool. It looks like gay soup. All of them like in the pool dancing around. It's not my thing. But I find it fascinating that's a good example of where you're on holiday, you're in party mode, but I'm also feeling incredibly safe and incredibly uninhibited to do things that are, on this kind of trip.
Are gay cruises popular?
Hugely popular. It's a real phenomenon that's sprung up. It was happening pre-COVID, but post-COVID, they've become huge. So yeah, really, really interesting thing to kind of watch. But cruising in and of itself is a huge industry. Problematic because it's a huge polluter. So that makes me feel really, really uncomfortable. The cruise ships are much more heavy polluters than airplanes.
Wow.
So yeah, I find them really, really difficult to kind of think through.
That's not really spoken about, is it? The fact that these huge vehicles are on the ocean and probably dumping loads of waste in the sea.
I was in Santorini last year for a holiday, and just watching the cruise boats just pumping out this huge amount of toxic crap into the kind of atmosphere there. It was just crazy because they're parked in one bay, then they wanted to get the boat around to the sunset. I'm like, this is unsustainable. It's not healthy. And also the other bit that's difficult with it is when cruise tourists come off onto the mainland and they're doing their kind of day trips, they're not really spending money in the way that is actually sustainable and will be invested back into community. So yeah, they might buy a trinket or two, but half the time the trinket might be made in China or Bangladesh. It's not made locally. They're not eating local restaurants because they can get all their food on board. Like all those things that you think would come as benefit from having that wide amount of people come onto into your area just doesn't quite happen. So I think the whole industry is really problematic.
So gay cruises specifically, there was a funny film which was, I don't know if it was funny these days, but did you ever watch a film called Boat Trip, where two straight lads accidentally went on a gay cruise?
I haven't, but now I am going to go out and seek that out.
It's one of those trashy 90s films that they would just never make anymore.
Yeah.
But it is very funny. And it got me thinking about gay cruises in general and how they differ. And I guess one could assume that they're primarily for partying and sex.
Yeah.
Is that true? I'm not sure.
I would say that's pretty much where it's at. And again, that if that's your motivation and that's what you want to do, fine, go for it. But yeah, it's interesting that that's happening in that kind of environment as well.
Yeah.
So that they've decided that everybody on a boat is the way to go. So yeah, it's interesting.
Well, I wouldn't want my mum and dad booking that by accident. That'd be hilarious.
All included takes on a completely different meaning.
Exactly. That makes such a funny documentary, putting
I know, right?
very conservative couple on one of these gay cruises.
Well, it's also like I do wonder what it means to be a differently abled person on a cruise like that as well. Like you're trying to connect community, because often that is a very stereotypical kind of person that potentially takes on that. So I think it's an interesting phenomenon. I don't know how long it will last for, but it's big at the moment.
Right, okay. Cruising for me is my worst nightmare, but
100%.
Yeah, being stuck on this thing.
Do you know what it is? Like, it's a cruise smorgasbord. It just kind of, I feel quite ill thinking about it. It's just not my thing.
People listening will be curious for just some sort of like hot tips, I guess. So if you are able to, then it'd be great to get your insight from a Lonely Planet perspective. But and also your own personal experience. So for solo LGBT plus travelers, so you're completely alone, where would you or Lonely Planet say is a really good place to go?
The one that really has surfaced for me, and shame on me for not having been there yet, but it's getting quite close to the top of my list, is Valletta in Malta. So very inclusive. This really easy to get around. Great Mediterranean holiday destination. Beautiful mix of culture The architecture there looks absolutely crazy, beautiful. Food looks absolutely sensational. So, and just again, highly rated as one of the Malta is one of the most inclusive countries in the world. So that I would say is a number one tick. So definitely throw that on your list. I find most of the Nordic nations incredibly welcoming, particularly Copenhagen in Denmark. I absolutely adore there. I feel that's just one place that really, really welcomes, and the community is great, and everybody is so stylish. Everybody is beautiful. Like, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I feel like I've been hit by the ugly stick. It's full on. Yeah, it's great.
Nice. Okay. So pack your good clothes if you're going there.
Yeah. Pack your decent stuff.
Don't have your thongs and whatever.
Your flip flops. Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know if you know much about winter skiing and trips like that. Could we talk about that?
Yeah, so the big one for me, I mean, I can talk from my perspective being down under, like Queenstown in New Zealand has Gay Ski Week. Like, they're very big, very inclusive down in New Zealand. And you're skiing at a time when it's actually, I think it's your summer, right? So, no, it is your summer when we're skiing.
Yeah.
So, really, really big down there. So that's, if you're thinking about actually, coming down winter time, I would be throwing Queenstown on your list in New Zealand.
Wow, we wouldn't think about that. I wouldn't think that.
It's absolutely huge, and Queenstown's beautiful. It's one of the most scenic kind of flights in, because you come through like this, like into this kind of valley. Really good food there, great hotels, and you can drive out to some smaller towns, which are really gorgeous. So that I'd highly rate that. And yeah, Gay Ski Week is huge.
Nice. Personal or Lonely Planet suggested European cities for LGBT plus travelers.
So definitely Valletta and Malta would definitely be high on the list. Lisbon, Porto in Portugal, another two that are really great and really close by one another as well. So you can do a very easy trip one by one. Again, those Nordic countries, Helsinki's great. I felt really safe, really had a really good time in Helsinki when I was last there. So I'd throw all those down.
Best romantic destinations for you and your partner to go to, do you think?
I actually think from a romance point of view, we found Japan really romantic, because I think this was a difference between the kind of old and the new, and we actually felt really comfortable there. I just found, particularly as we got out of Tokyo, out of the kind of wild, the craziness of those cities, some of the smaller towns, we were really looked after. I found that really, really beautiful. So really, highly rated that, and that was surprising. Yeah. So I didn't necessarily think that was going to be what it was. Nice. The other one that I think is the most romantic place in the world. It's an Australian reference. So it's a little place called Lord Howe Island, which is off of the New South Wales coast. They only allow 400 visitors at a time on the island. There's no internet. So you have to watch DVDs if you want to watch anything in your room. But it is somewhere that I was able to kind of walk out and go snorkeling and see walk out onto the beach, go snorkeling, turtles, all sorts of bits and pieces, walk back in, have breakfast. It was just magically romantic. So gorgeous, loved it.
Lord
Howe Island.
Where's that?
It's just off of the New South Wales coast. So it's a flight off of the New South Wales coast. So it's a island located in the southernmost coral reef of Australia. Just for listeners, Lord Howe Island, Google it, look it up. You will see how stunningly gorgeous it is. Just a beautiful patch of the world.
Do you have to take one of those little planes?
You do have to take a little plane with the little propellers on the side, which I do quite like. That's quite fun.
You don't mind flying. At the back of the book, there is reference to pride events that happen all over the world, and I was gobsmacked at how many there are.
There are a lot.
Yeah, and that it's all year round.
It's all year round. Yeah, we've just come off of Pride Festival or Pride season in Australia. So obviously that was that culminated with the Gay and Lesbian Mardi Gras in Sydney. But I love Melbourne's Pride Party, which happens in Collingwood and Fitzroy. It's blazing summer, so it's sort of like 35 degrees. But I think that event is so indicative of how prides have evolved. So they block off two main streets and it's kind of like an elbow a corner. Stages put up with live music. It's family, it's community, it's local, it's businesses, it's music. It is the ultimate integration of and celebration of what we want to see, which I think is really, really beautiful. It doesn't necessarily have to be about a parade with floats with boys in Speedos and girls with the boobs out. That's not what it needs to be. That's where I feel those kind of events have completely morphed, and it's almost become intrinsically part of that part of that neighborhood, which is just beautiful, and that's what we want to see.
I feel like I'm getting the impression from you that you like really real experiences and adventure. The party scene and the big flashy obvious isn't really your vibe.
It never really has been. So, and that's fine. You know, we're all horses for courses. And that's why I work for a travel company like Lonely Planet, which is about connecting to, you know, locals and communities and you know, getting off the beaten track, you know, which is part of the brand's DNA. That kind of works for me. But yeah, so that's just my jam and how I travel.
Yeah, I spoke to my friend last night on the phone, and he said he's just got back from Rio. He did Carnival there, and I didn't realize how much of a big gay celebration that is and how much fun you can have there. And there really are, across the world throughout the year, so many huge parties that people can go to. Now, I know that that's not particularly your thing that you look for when you travel, but just based on knowing the travel industry, where's a huge party that people can go to if they want?
What I would say is there's 2 or 3 that I actually want to attend, and it's more about the destination. So I definitely want to go back to Reykjavik when Pride is on, because I want to see what that destination is like when it is in full party mode. But obviously there are, particularly through Europe, you've got Stockholm Pride, Berlin, Amsterdam, Copenhagen. You've got like all that route of or that menu of places across Europe. The other one I'd be really interested to go to is the one in Toronto. I think that could be really, really interesting. And there's such an inclusive community as well. So that would be one that I want to celebrate. I was really surprised how much I enjoyed the one that I went to in Auckland in New Zealand as well. It was much more low key, but it was, again, it felt like I was saying before, it was that nice cross section of community, celebration, reflection, but also inclusivity as well, which is I think where we want Pride festivals to go to, what we want them to morph into. You can go from Pride to Pride like all year round if you want to.
Yeah.
Chase Pride.
Do you and your partner have your go-to that you regularly go to, that you've been to numerous times?
We are going back to Japan. We really, really love it. Japan is the best food holiday I've ever had in my life. The food there is just, it's friggin' sensational.
What part of Japan?
So we stay mainly on Honshu Island, but what we want to do is we want to explore wider. So we want to go down south to Okinawa, which is the more tropical Pacific part of the islands, and also go to the other side of Honshu. So we've done sort of one side extensively, so we want to go to the other side. But yeah, it's beautiful. So easy to get around on the Shinkansens.
Yeah.
The train's so fast, so good. Everything's so regimented, but in a really fun way. It doesn't feel like you're being forced anywhere. It's just efficient. It's great.
Yeah. Well, again, you answered my question where, just in terms of your own personal experience, recommendation for best in food, you've said Japan.
Japan. It's the one thing we did in Japan, which I love, and I'd highly recommend for people going for first times for anywhere, is we actually did a 3-hour food tour on our very first trip to Tokyo. So we just got a local to take us around. You can find a lot of these places. Intrepid is a really good one for doing local tours organized by locals. The guide took us to 5 or 6 different styles of restaurants, and we got to sample the food. So it's like, this is what a yakitori bar looks like. This is what the sushi place looks like. This is okonomiyaki, which is like the cabbage pancake. Do I like that? Do I not like that? So I could then, through the rest of my trip, was grounded in terms of like, I know what that looks like. I know that place is open. Yeah, really sensible way of doing things.
And then personally, where's your favorite place you've ever been?
Yeah, it's Iceland.
Iceland.
Yeah, it is Iceland. It is it's just so crackers. And it's kind of like, it is the place that I want to go back to. And that's how I always answer that question. It's like, if I were given anywhere on the world that I would, that I could go back to immediately, what would it be? It would be Iceland. It always comes to the top of the list.
How many countries have you been to personally?
77, 78, something like that. Like something stupid. It's stupid.
Yeah, and will you not rest until you've been to everywhere you want to go to?
Yeah, I do. I actually want to travel to some kooky places. I definitely want to. I'm keen to get to Uzbekistan and have a look there. I really want somewhere like Armenia or Georgia to win the Eurovision Song Contest, so I can go there, have an excuse to go to one of those kind of places. I shame on me, have not been to Egypt, so Egypt is high on the list as well to get to. So there are a few places that I definitely want to get out there. But again, I'd love to explore Australia more extensively as well. So I haven't done the northwest coast of Western Australia, so I'd love to kind of get up there as well. So yeah, there's always somewhere.
Yeah, well,
extensive list.
What other trips do you have planned this year?
Too many. So I'm off to Scotland on Sunday. I'm in Whistler in Canada later this year. Back to New York, doing some stuff in Richmond in Virginia. Basel in Switzerland. I've got back to the States again. Hopefully the South Island of New Zealand, and that gets me to I think September. And I'm not necessarily planned after that.
Yeah, you don't have any dogs, do you?
No, I've got a cat.
Okay, how do you travel with a cat?
We have a shared cat with my next door neighbor, so she's slightly schizophrenic. She doesn't know where she lives.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, that kind of works out then.
She's like, "Oh, am I here? Am I here? Am I here? Am I here?" That's fine.
Yeah, I've got a cat, and it's a pain in the ass to travel with. But I guess I need a neighbor that I can drop him off at.
Yeah, no. Coco the cat lives. She lives between the two of us. So when my next door neighbor's away, she's with me, and when I'm away, she's with her.
Yeah,
it just works.
Well, thank you for your personal insight into places to go to, because people will be interested in that. But I think that we can both agree that it is very important for LGBT plus people to know where is safe to travel, where is fun to travel, and the sort of the laws and also the culture. And Lonely Planet has made this lovely book, which is behind me. I'm going to grab it. I want to get a shot. Ta-da!
It's actually really beautiful. I'm really happy with the design too.
Yeah,
nice little
it's
hardcover.
nice.
It's great.
Yeah, and it's really easy to digest. It's not an intimidating book.
Not at all.
Which is nice.
And we've talked a lot through this interview, but at the back is where all those resources are. So
yeah,
we absolutely know that we're not the expert on those really intimate details of the resources. So that compendium at the back is such a great piece.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to tick some places off.
I hope we inspire you to go somewhere that you might not have thought of.
Yeah, I'm sure you have. I mean, Japan.
Yeah, there we
Sign me
go.
up.
My job is done.
All right, Chris, thank you so much.
No, thank you for having me.